I'm sorry about the wardrobe misfunction from a moment ago. I'm delighted to see all of you here. One of the advantages of going last, I thought, was that I thought the house would have emptied by now and we would be down to just me and a couple of friends, but that's not the case. Hearing the other speakers who preceded me, I've been impelled to change the focus of my talk. I can't tell you how to make the world a better place, and I'm not going to give you any inspirational lessons, and I hope you all hug one another, but I'm here today to speak on behalf of selfishness, and I'll tell you why. It is appropriate for several reasons that I'm the last one on the program. Some of these are more relevant than others. First, I'm the oldest person on the program. Second, I have been at SMU longer than anybody else here. I find these facts unacceptable and unbelievable, but sometimes I feel like Nestor in the Iliad. There are two other reasons that it's appropriate that I go last. I don't want to say lied to, but I was told when I spoke to Heather that I was not allowed to use visual aids. She said, no, the latest thing, Jose Bowen, teach naked. And I said, but I've been teaching naked all my life. I've never used PowerPoint. I've never used anything like that. I come into a classroom, and what's in the classroom? There's me, there's the students, and there's the book. My subject today is, this is so radical it will blow you away. My subject today is reading. Reading, simple as that. Some years ago, I was asked to give a talk at the SMU Honors Convocation. I'm sure most of the students here have been there. It is the most colossally boring thing that goes on at the university. Every student, I mean, this is Garrison Keelerville. All of the children are above average. Everybody is paraded on and is saluted and applauded and goes out. So I was asked to give a kind of speech, a pep talk. And I thought to myself, and then I said to the students, well, this is getting you ready for commencement. If you think this is boring, wait till commencement, because at commencement, you will be fed all kinds of cliches and bromides, and you won't remember anything. So I'll get you ready for that by giving you some commandments, words of wisdom, pearls from Professor Spiegelman, and I will give you 9 commandments. I said I would have given 10, but that number had already been taken in an earlier generation. I don't remember what, this is sort of the David Letterman in me, I don't remember what 9 through 3 were, but I do remember 1 and 2. Number 2 was always carry earplugs with you. We live in a world which is so inundated with noise. Do we need CNN and airports? Can you find a restaurant without music? Can you find a restaurant without people screaming? Difficult to do. Always carry earplugs. It is of interest to me, at least, that I am now writing what will be, I think, my next and probably my last book. And the subject, in part, is going to be silence. Of that, I will say no more. I can say no more. The first rule, however, the first commandment was never go anywhere without a book. Not an iPad, not a Kindle, a book. Because if the power fails, or if you are trapped by the side of the road waiting for AAA to come get you, you can read a book. So the next reason that it's appropriate that I'm last is that I represent the oldest technology here, and it is reading. When we are in a classroom, in my classroom, we are dealing with what William Butler Yeats called monuments of unaging intellect, and what Matthew Arnold, writing in the 1870s, meant when he defined culture as the best that has been known and thought. These are so archaic that they are almost inconceivable in today's university world. The liberal arts, which is what I represent, especially the humanities, are under siege everywhere, at SMU and at other universities. The humanities are losing students. Students are interested in pre-professional education, whether for good or for ill. They want to take majors that will help them get a career, get their toe up on the ladder, and help them to earn a living. They want money. Everybody wants money. There are different kinds of money, which leads me to my title. Books are things which, according to Franz Kafka, should be the axe to break the frozen sea within us. Books can change a life. They will not change the world, but they might change you. And I will recite. I would have printed it on the board, but the board, there's my antiquity. I would have given it to you, but I'll have to give it to you simply by my words. There is a poem written by a young poet who had had a wonderful, in his case, life-changing experience from having read a book. And the books were translations of the Iliad and the Odyssey by Shakespeare's contemporary, George Chapman, poet, playwright, etc. And the young poet was so excited by having heard or read this translation that he wrote in a white-hot heat a sonnet, which he wrote as he was walking home from spending an evening with a childhood schoolmate to his flat in London, and the friend had the finished poem by the morning mail. Imagine that, before email. In London in the 19th century, letters were delivered 4 and 5 times a day. On first looking into Chapman's Homer, much have I traveled in the realms of gold, and many goodly states and kingdoms seen. Round many western islands have I been, which bards in fealty to Apollo hold. Oft of one wide expanse had I been told that deep-browed Homer ruled as his demesne. Yet did I never breathe its pure serene till I heard Chapman speak out loud and bold. Then felt I like some watcher of the skies when a new planet swims into his ken, or like stout Cortez when with eagle eyes he stared at the Pacific and all his men looked at each other with a wild surmise, silent, upon a peak in Darien. John Keats was 20 when he wrote that poem. 2 weeks later, he turned 21. He was about to leave his medical training in London, the career that he was preparing for, because he couldn't stand it any longer, and he wanted to become a poet, which he did, to our great, I think, wonderment. But his career lasted only another 3 years. Keats died at the age of 25. There is no English or American poet, very few people in any art form whom we would remember today, that includes Shakespeare and Milton and Chaucer, whom we would remember today had they died at 25. Kurt Cobain, maybe. For an older generation, Jean Harlow, maybe. But Keats died at 25. He had only 3 years left. Keats thinks of himself in that poem as a reader, but also as a traveler. And he's doing what a poet does. He is saying one thing in terms of another. He's working with a simile, a metaphor, a very easy one. Reading is like traveling. I'm not a novice. I'm not a nobody. I have read the classics. I've been here. I've been there. I had heard that there was a place called Homer Land, but I never really got it because I never could read Greek. Keats was a poor boy. He had Latin. He had French. He didn't have Greek. He had to rely on translation. And hearing Chapman's translation of Homer energized him and moved him. And that's what made him think, I have to describe the experience. The sonnet is very nice. When this happens, then that happened. First cause, then effect. I read this thing, what am I going to say? How did I feel? Then felt I like, he says, resorting to a simile. In the age of tweets, it's easy to say, well, so I read this book and then I felt, oh my God, or I felt like WTF. We can't say that. Then felt I like, and he's fishing for the proper simile, the most useful. Well, maybe I felt like the astronomer William Herschel, who had just discovered the planet Uranus 30 years before. No, that's not good enough, because the astronomer is standing down below, looking up, and the planet is swimming. I always have this image of a little planet doing a breaststroke through the heavens, swimming through his canyon. No. A conquistador, a rapacious Spaniard. Keats made a mistake. He knew it was Balboa, but he put Cortez in. It doesn't make any difference. Cortez looking at the Pacific, and you have to imagine Cortez up on the mountain there, Darien, Panama, not Connecticut, looking up there, looking out at the Pacific, and he's shocked. And as our students would say, so Cortez was like, and all the other guys were like, look at that dude, what's he like? The men were silent upon a peak in Darien. This is the kind of gold that lasts. Indulge me for one more minute. I will go over by 90 seconds. Another poem about gold. Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold, her early leafs a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down to day, nothing gold can stay. It's one of Robert Frost's simplest and most lovely poems about the inevitable decline of everything. Notice he does not use the word fall in the poem, but it's everywhere there. And notice also something you may have heard, but it's the kind of thing we teach our students to detect. Every line in the poem has 3 beats. Every line in the poem, every line in the first 7 lines of the poem has 6 syllables. And then you get to the one that ends it all, the climax of the poem. Nothing gold can stay. 5 syllables. Something has been left out. The poem has fallen. Robert Frost's contemporary, Ezra Pound, who was an anti-Semitic fascist son of a bitch, said memorably, "What thou lovest well remains, the rest is dross." And there are other contemporary, Wallace Stevens, who spent his entire life working in Hartford as an insurance man at Hartford Indemnity and Life, and wrote his poems as he walked back and forth along Asylum Avenue, 2 miles back, 2 miles forth every day, putting little pieces of paper in his pocket. Wallace Stevens, who knew whereof he spoke, said, "Money is a kind of poetry." A wonderful simile, a wonderful equation. My message to you today is we can reverse the terms and say, poetry is a kind of money. Thank you.